Hello, Trailblazers. Welcome to the Trailblazers Palette Podcast. I'm your host, Sanchia Marshall. In this episode, I chat with Mel, whose creative journey covers mastering audio engineering to becoming a social media content creator and now a gaming streamer. We discuss how her love for music sparked a career in audio engineering, her transition to social media management, and her experience with ADHD and its impacts on her life. Mel shares insights into creating a safe online gaming community on Twitch, her passion for books, and her views on social media and gaming addiction. Let's dive in. Oh, it's so good to meet you, Mel. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't expect to meet you too. I've only ever heard you from Creamy about how like your favorite weapon is Striga, and then there's a few things that I think I can remember complimenting your hunter before because you match your Striga ornament with like your very gold embellishment hunter
Yes.
getup, and then I just thought it was really cool. That was like one of my first impressions. Like there's a mom out there that plays Destiny. I've heard of grandpas playing Destiny too, but I've never heard of moms playing Destiny too, which I thought was really cool. So it's nice to meet you. Hello.
You too. Because I think Krimi showed me Ransom Rider as well. He's like a retired guy who does Destiny too, and I'm like, that's so cool.
Yeah. I don't often play with. I don't often realize that the people that I play with is not always like people my age, which is weird. There are a lot of people my age, but there's also a lot of people way younger than me. Because sometimes I
Yeah,
forget I'm 30, and then there'll be people like,
yeah,
"Oh, I just turned 21. I can finally drink now," and then I'm like, "Wait, what? You sound so much older." Or then there'll be people like who have grandkids,
yeah,
and when I speak to them, and then they just sound so cheeky and just full of life, and I'm just
yeah,
like, wait, you have like a whole family
yeah,
that you've had your whole life. So
yeah,
it's just wild. I it's one of the reasons why I love Destiny 2 community because everyone just comes as themselves,
yeah,
and you get to meet a lot of interesting people that way.
yeah. Yeah, I love it. I think because I got into it with the boys. My eldest son, Xander, his friend was
Uh-huh.
playing it, and then he
Okay.
started playing it, and then Parker, Crimi, started playing it, and then I was kind of like, I used to play Team Fortress 20 years ago.
Oh, so what got you? I mean, you said you started playing with the boys, but what made you like interested in the game, like or intrigued by the game?
I probably liked that it was a little bit more complicated. I think the game in itself is kind of beautiful. Like I love that you can kind of
Mhm.
have the fashion aspect of it, and I'm
Yeah.
not probably into so much the technical side of it or the strategic side because I'm just like with the mods and things. I'm like, oh yeah, the blue wavy thing.
Yeah,
But
I know. I fair.
yeah.
I get it.
But yeah, like the Dreaming City and things like that. I know you're running around shooting
Oh
things, but
yeah.
it's really pretty.
It is. Destiny is definitely one of the most beautiful game I've ever come across. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
haven't played much, but Dreaming City was one of the first places that I hung out a lot. And my first thought was like, this looks like a vacation place. Let me
Yeah,
come here
yeah.
like every now and then just to, get away from the war and
Yeah.
the like cuz Cosmodrome is inspired by like Russia and how human
Yeah.
civilizations are no longer there. But like then you come to Dreaming City and you're like,
Oh, of
wait, this is
course.
really pretty. This
Yeah,
doesn't look like
yeah.
any other place we've been to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I understand the aspect of like it being a beautiful game for sure and
Yeah.
complicated. I agree
Yeah.
to a certain
Yeah.
extent. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I like it. And I think that because I've been playing for about a year, I think, just a bit over a year. I've only just sort of got on Twitch and that because Parker would keep saying, "Oh, you should get on Twitch," and all these people on Twitch, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, wow." And so I finally got on and went, "Oh, this is crazy."
I
Um,
met him over a year ago, and so for what 14, 13-year-old boy, he's so
yeah,
adventurous and so curious.
yeah,
And I just love that about him. I do tease him a lot like my own little brother.
yeah.
But we often have good times together, and he there are a lot of things that he has taught me about the game as well, and he's usually
Mm,
more up to date about the updates and stuff like that. Because I just play the game, I adapt. I don't really know what's being nerfed. Sometimes I don't even notice. So then he'll be one of those people that will like drop links in Discord and be like, "This happened, that announced, and this one's
yeah.
getting nerfed, that one's getting buffed," and I'm like, "Okay, at least now when people ask me, I know what to say." So,
Yeah, because I think
that
he's into the law and everything too. Like he watches all the stuff on the law and he gets quite into it. Yeah.
yeah, he does. I appreciate him. Appreciate that about him. Yeah.
So, welcome to the podcast, Mel. And if you can just share a bit about yourself and what you do.
First of all, thank you for having me. My name is Mel. I'd like to consider myself the epitome of someone with ADHD.
Yeah.
Because my whole life has just a lot of stories. I started with a strong music background because I was bored and my family moved around a lot. And so when we moved to a town that didn't have a music class, I started picking up like other instruments. My main instrument was piano, and then I saw some uni kids playing three other instruments beside piano in church, and I was like, if he can do that, I can do that too. So then I started dabbling into like playing a lot of instruments. And then as I grow older and, we need to go to college or university at some point, right? So decided to pursue music, but I had like a very like eye-opening conversation with someone, with a leader from my church who was also kind of in tune with the music industry, and he told me straight up that I can't perform, and I was like, damn, what can I do if I can't perform? Because I play four instruments. Like, what can I do? I sing a little bit as well. But he introduced me to audio production. And so that's kind of like how my background in sound and music and audio production kind of started. And I spent a good portion of my year, my 10-year career as an audio engineer. After college, I spent only about a year and a half in college because I don't like school, and I think school is very boring. I'm more of a hands-on person. Even when I was in school, I started working just because I couldn't sit still. And so for 10 years, I was a freelance, on and off freelance sound engineer, full time sound engineer every now and then. So keep switching between free times and full time. Freelance and full time. I don't want. I just said. And then at some point during my audio engineering stint, I came across uh, the van life community. It'll make sense. I came across the van life community and I got really into it. And then I kept thinking, like, how do these people make money on the road, not having like a permanent full time job? And one of like, all the jobs seemed cool, but like one that's really stood out with me was social media management. So I kind of slowly started dabbling in that since like 2017. And then 2019 I went full freelance again, and at the end of that, I got involved. I got to know someone who was running a broadcast company, and that was my first proper stint as a social media manager, or more like a digital marketing. So I was overseeing a lot of things. So I went from like sound, audio to social media to working full time for social media, and I've kind of never really stopped doing social media. After that company, I went full time in another company that was closer to what I studied before, which was related to audio and sound. So I did marketing and audio, which I thought was like a dream job at that time. But then I figured out a lot of things didn't really align to me, and I still wanted to go back to freelance. So then after after that, I went back freelance again, and that didn't really work out again. So like I was going through a lot of phases of freelancing and full timing, between jobs and stuff like that. But ultimately, I realized that I just needed a space for me to not feel like I have to mask myself.
Mm.
Um, this probably would have worked out if I was a little bit more selective with my client list. My clients were great; they were really fun to work with. But like one of them was like more of a luxury nail salon, and I feel like I'm a slob whenever I go in there. It's nothing to do with them. I feel like always have to look really, really pretty, and that stressed me out. And it's nothing to do with them. They are wonderful people. I get like free manicure every month. It's great. I get to look pretty, but I have to look pretty, and that was one of the things that stressed me out. And I much prefer a more natural, like easygoing vibe. And I wear t-shirts all day, every day.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So then after like over a year of doing that, I took a step back because I realized like I have always been chasing the highs, looking for dopamine, which is the one of the things that our brain can't really produce properly. That's what makes us neurodivergent, and in the sense that that's what makes us ADHD. And I didn't know how to manage unless I solely depend on medication. Medication is fine, I just at some point wanted to be more mindful, more in tune with what actually are the things that I'm feeling. What exactly am I struggling that I don't want to just take my medication and then get about my day. I want to be intentional with the changes that I want to do. And it's really hard because I get distracted easily and I
Mm.
babble a lot. So, that was a really long introduction, I just realized. But basically, I feel like I'm the epitome of ADHD because I have so many changes and phases and seasons that I go through.
Mm.
But now I kind of just try to slow down a little bit and really take one day at a time and be a bit more mindful in the interactions that I do, the changes that I do, the decisions that I make. That way I don't regret not being able to live in the moment because that will always be something I regret every day. But yeah, that's a whole conversation over there.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Mel. I like knowing that about you, and I didn't know you did social media, and the marketing. So that's really cool, and I'll come back to that though.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
No worries.
Um, so how did you get into the gaming? Because for those who don't know, I met you through my son, and he games online in a game called Destiny 2, and I think he met Mel through Twitch, or was it Discord, or
It
somehow
was
he met
Twitch.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then and then I met Mel through Twitch recently. So and she helped me through my first grandmaster, for those who know, on the game, or one of them.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was really scary, but it was nice to do it with Mel because she's so good at it.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I totally forgot the entire start of that part of my life. But I will start with this. I was never a gamer. I never considered myself a gamer. There was a whole controversy with the Sims 4 community when creators started calling themselves gamers. And I kind of resented that back then. I still do a little bit now for how those creators were treated when they call themselves gamers when they play Sims 4. I think it's a cozy game, and if you play
Mm,
a game, you are considered a gamer. Just want to put it out there.
yeah.
But it was hard to kind of like get rid of that mentality. Um, it wasn't until the pandemic that I realized one, I was going through a severe form of depression and I hadn't realized it back then. Um,
Mm,
and then during the pandemic is also where I fully accepted I have ADHD. So when I was going through my depression, I didn't feel like I was accomplishing anything. There was that I was just waking up, going to work, come back, live through my day, right? There was just nothing exciting. I tried to come up with like a morning routine. I did that for 2 months. One day I decided I didn't want to do it. I one day I decided I wanted to sleep in, and then somehow I just never went back into it. Um, and the only thing that kind of piqued my interest was this game called Left 4 Dead. If anyone's heard of it, it's a zombie game. It's an FPS zombie game, and I learned that I like things like that rewards you. I like seeing the numbers on the screen. I like seeing that I've killed a certain zombie, especially if it's a special one, like one that's supposed to be harder to kill. And then I like that at the end of every campaign, it will show stats like a rolling credit, and I would always look for my name and I would always see like am I going to be top of the list, did I kill this many zombies, did I kill this many points and stuff like that, so I realized that reward system is what was going to keep me going, and that's also kind of like how I slowly accepted ADHD. So we got into that. We my friends and I, we had a little hyperfixation moment where we were playing that quite a bit for a few months, and then and then I realized that we had like sort of a funny thing going on. I thought we were funny. At least I thought my friends were funny and I was just reacting along with them. So I started streaming, not because I wanted to get any attention, because there's not a lot of people watching Left 4 Dead. It's not a big community out there. I find it the community was more prominent on YouTube, but I didn't like streaming on YouTube. I seem to feel like I like streaming on Twitch. So I did that to record our moments, to have some vlog, Eventually, obviously, there's not much you can do unless you play the community map. So I went into CS:GO for a little bit because it was free, and then I discovered I didn't like PvP. So then I came across Destiny because it was free. I forgot who introduced it to me. Could be my brother. My brother's always the one that's introducing a game to me. I remember not liking it the first time. I remember that I was always still spooked whenever you remember when you start a character and you go through the cosmodrome from the other side and you go
Yeah.
in through the building. It's kind of scary. There wasn't a lot of light and you couldn't turn
Yeah.
on and off the flashlight like you would in Left 4 Dead. So I didn't like
Yeah.
the spookiness. I thought this was a
Mm.
spooky game, and so I
Yeah.
quit immediately. I didn't go back to it until like a few months later. And that's, if anyone has seen my hunter back then, I've already deleted it, but my hunter
Yeah.
was bald because of that, because I forgot to do customization. I just went straight into the game. And
Right.
then you couldn't change your character anymore after that. Now you can though, like
Yeah.
they'll have an update for that.
Yeah.
But I went into it somehow, was a little bit more brave. And I remember I started it on the 1st of February 2 years ago because it was the first day of Chinese New Year.
Mm.
And we didn't have money to go back to our hometown. I'm half Chinese, so I do have Chinese family members. But we
Mm.
spent 12-hour days that week just playing Destiny, 12-hour days.
Yeah,
And
that's huge.
it was there was so I felt like there was so much to do because there were
Yeah.
bounties I gotta finish, there were
Yes, yes. It's
quests I
exciting
gotta
when you first
do.
start.
Yes, so it's a good game to get your hyper focus going. It didn't
Yeah.
feel overwhelming for me. I was just slowly taking my time getting to know things. So that's kind of like how I started Destiny 2. It's because I started playing games and I started looking for games to help me cope with my mental health, which is kind of an odd way of managing it, I suppose. But
Mm.
I am grateful that I came across games that know how to reward people with
Yeah.
like decently amount of dopamine. And
Mm.
yeah, so that's how I started during the pandemic, and because it was free.
Yeah, it's actually interesting you say that because I've noticed that I haven't been diagnosed with ADHD, but I can identify with a lot of the things. Like if you're looking at self-diagnosis, and I think that yeah, if you do have those symptoms, definitely get it diagnosed professionally so that you can, I guess, understand anything to understand yourself better. Yeah, I find that if I'm playing Destiny or something like that, I have such better mental health than say if I sat down and watched maybe like a Netflix series or so, or binged on something. It's just yeah, chalk and cheese with how I feel afterwards.
I get that. I totally get that. I'm an all or nothing person. So if I don't watch one episode at a time, I would binge, and then I would binge until like the next day. And it's not always a healthy thing, but with gaming, I do feel like I have a bit more sense of control. I get to choose when I start and when I end, and I don't have it dictate my life like I would starting a TV show. So if that TV show has 6 seasons, I'm gone for the week. You can't you no one's gonna be able to find me for a week. So
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I get that. I think I relate to you like that in some
yeah,
ways. Yeah.
yeah. Which I've done too. I think that which I think my son, I think, because I watched Witcher. I did space it out, Mel, watching Witcher and the different seasons. But I think yeah, Krimi, he's like he did it all in like a couple of days.
Yep. Yep. I get that. Been there,
Yeah,
done that.
yeah, yeah. And so, Mel, if you can talk about like how you came to the Twitch community and making a living online, I guess doing that, like, because a lot of people, I mean, that's to me, your job is cool. A lot of people think my job's cool doing art and that, but to me, I guess it's just normal because I do it all the time. So to me, your job's really cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I get that. I don't remember what kind of who I've said this kind of conversation before, but I've had many of these conversations where are gonna think our job is meh, but like other
Mm,
people are gonna think our job is cool. I think it was in relation to social media because people don't understand why people are excited to watch our content. Let me just dive deep into that because like people
mm,
like to see the behind the scene moments, see how people run their business, people how they come up with menus or how they come up with like recipes and stuff like that, or how they come together, come up with art and the thought process and stuff like that. I think that's really cool, and I know that earning online on Twitch is a big question that a lot of people have, like how much they earn. I want to put it out there for people who are thinking about making an income through Twitch. It's not a lot. It's just that I come from a country whose currency is really bad. So then when you convert it, I make it a decent living, like minimum
Mm.
wage. It converts to minimum wage, and it gets things going
Yeah.
for the time being.
And I'd say a lot of people doing Twitch too, it's probably one avenue, I'm imagining. They would
Yes.
have other avenues as well. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of these big names, they are probably also content creators on other platforms, especially like YouTube. They might make content in
Yes.
YouTube. They might earn a big income from there. They might do
Mm.
sponsorships and stuff like that. So for people who are usually based in the United States, especially, I feel they have a bit more opportunities. A lot of them, even smaller streamers, can do like sponsored content from Stream Elements, for example. Like that's not something that's going to be available to me because
Mm.
I'm from Malaysia, and that I had a brand approach me once if I could represent them. The second they found out I was Malaysian, they were like, "Oh, we don't ship to Malaysia," or like I think they ship a lot, but like they don't ship products for us to try to Malaysia. So then like, okay, I understand. I'm not like offended, but I'm also aware the limited opportunities that I have. Okay,
Mm.
so let me go back to your question before I babble a little bit more. How did I come across the community? Honestly, I tell this story all the time, and I think it's one of those things that was kind of by chance lucky because there's this concept on Twitch, if you guys don't know, it's called rating out. So when you end your stream, you don't just end your stream there. You can support other streamers, other people in the community by bringing your community over to someone else's stream. And I had never done that as a small streamer when I started out. This was one of the things that I told myself to give it a try. I saw someone's name. If you watch anyone's stream, there's like recommended channels on the left. I don't follow up a lot of people, but this guy named Chromocytoma, I saw his name. I thought his name looked cool, and I checked out his stream before I rated out. He was doing, I remember, Solo Corrupted on a Solar Titan. I can't remember if it was Heart of Inmost Light, but I remember him putting up his barricade, throwing grenades, throwing his hammer, putting up his barricade. And I just thought that was really cool.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
he was the first person I rated out too. But I think the other thing that really that really pushed my, I don't know, identity on Twitch or like my
Mm.
channel among this community is that I rated out without realizing to one of his friends. So the
Mm.
next night I rated out to, if you've come across my bot in my chat who has like really sassy personality, adds butt to random sentences. So bot's dad, we lovingly call him. His name is Sink on Twitch. I read out to him the following night, and I didn't know that they know each other. And I just read out to people that whose name I thought was cool, and I
Mm.
felt like had a really good vibe. And then next thing I know, I got to know the circle of friends. I get to know Festive Cuban, who unfortunately no longer streams on Twitch very much anymore, but she's one of the people that taught me the corrupted GM strategy. I will forever remember that. And then I got to know this Australian streamer called Israfel, and then through him, I got to know Tonu, who is a master of raids. He's a raid man. So that's kind of like how I got to know all these people. It's through raiding one person,
Mm.
and then raiding another person, and then realizing that they know each other. And then from there, I stayed in their chat for a little bit. I got to know a little bit of them. And whenever they shout someone out, I go check them out and realize that they also do like Sherpa work. They teach other people how to do end game content. And I got really intrigued. And I would always join their queue whenever they do helps. And I would always ask them questions. I think one of my favorite things about Endgame is asking questions that a lot of people did not expect to ask, because that's how much I love Endgame. And I've
Mm.
had this comment from Festive many times when she taught me the Light Blade GM strat for the first time. I would ask questions that no one has ever asked, and she would have like a moment to think and like digest it for a bit and then
Yeah,
answer me. So like
that's cool.
that's how I really got involved with them.
Yeah, that's really cool. I kind of got that feel that it is a community and everyone seems to be quite supportive. And I really liked that vibe that you kind of have going on in your channel, that it's very positive. And, there's the help for the game, which is the Destiny 2 stuff, because I'd been in a couple of clans and had a couple of bad experiences, which did put me off trying the end game content, to be honest, because I didn't want to appear like a noob, that even though I was.
Right, right. Fair, fair, fair.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I have that thing too. I talked about this during my second IB stream this past week because I was really upfront about how much I don't like PvP. And I think I
Mhm.
don't like how it's really unpredictable and it stresses me out that it's so unpredictable. I mean, it can
Mm.
be as predictable as you want it to be. Human behavior a lot of times can be pretty predictable.
Yeah,
And but then it sort of like trigger like a pain point that I've always had my whole life, which is that my brain doesn't like the fact that I'm not good at something.
yeah,
And it's never kind to me because of that fact. And so I guess that's why I really push myself doing endgame helps because I want to be good at something and I don't want to be known as a noob. But
yeah.
over time, I learned to soften that edge and tell myself that it's okay and it's just human. It's just very
Mhm.
human of us to not know something, and I learned to ask questions. I learned to be okay with not knowing something. But yeah, it's every now and then it'll trigger that pain point, and it's why I don't dive into PvP as much because it always reminds me of that. But I'm
Yeah.
learning how to be okay with it.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, the PvP is like in Destiny 2, the PvE is like player versus environment, like just the game, whereas PvP is player versus player. So
Yeah.
yeah, like I know I went into Iron Banner this week and completely sucked. Yeah, like you say, got stressed out. I even like tried, having my better build, which was actually kind of cool. That was a fun part because I tried a stasis warlock.
Oh yeah. Oh
Where I could
yeah.
like freeze things. So yeah, it was really fun to freeze people and then shoot them.
Yep. No, I get that.
And but yeah, after a little while, I kind of gave up. So now I'm looking at a build for maybe doing the horde with getting mountaintop. So I'm like, I think
Nice.
that'll be a bit more fun.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy that.
So, Mel, maybe you can share a little bit about your journey with your diagnosis with your ADHD, because I imagine you had a podcast, which we can share in the show notes, sort of a bit about that and your journey to that diagnosis and what that meant for you. You mentioned you kind of had depression, and yeah, if you can share a bit about that.
I can. It's been a while since I've had like a more serious talk about ADHD, so I may forget certain things. I'll start with I'm turning 31 next month, but I kind of had an inkling I have ADHD when I was 20. When I was in
Mm,
college, there was this YouTuber called Ryan Higa. He went by a different name before, but unfortunately his name started with the N word. And so a lot of people like try to forget that little detail about him. But he's always been a really funny content creator. He used to have a series called Off the Pills. He'll just start something and then he'll go with the flow. That usually means when he's not on his medication and you'll see what his ideas. I remember there's one time he made a video. I could be remembering wrong, but I remember it being a list and he was showing many examples of what it's like to have ADHD. And I relate to all of them. And that was a
yeah,
scary
yeah.
realization. And I was just like, wait a minute, I have a thing. I have a name. There's a name for a thing that I have.
Right.
Back when I was 20, I was in college, and like, one of the things about ADHD is that you forget. And so I actually forgot that I figured out I may have ADHD for 10, well, almost 10 years. Maybe like not even
Mm,
10 years, but like around 7, 8 years. So I only recently came back to that realization because of the pandemic and because TikTok was getting really popular and there were a lot of videos about ADHD and you know how For You page works. When you like and interact with one or two videos, it'll just keep coming back to you.
give
So
you more.
a lot of these ADHD videos came to me and I sort of like had even more explanation to some of the things that I was experiencing. But it wasn't until maybe a year later that I seeked professional diagnosis. And I'll get to that in a bit, but
Mm,
along the lines of me figuring out that I have depression, I learned that my depression mostly stems from my ADHD, and this is because it's usually a comorbidity. They usually go together. I like to class ADHD as an invisible disability because people don't understand that sometimes ADHD can be really debilitating, and I'm very vocal about making this known and understood by a lot of people because there's so much that you don't understand when it comes to what's going on behind those two little innocent looking eyes. At some point, I decided to look for a therapist, but very specifically, someone who understands what ADHD is.
yeah.
I wasn't looking for diagnosis yet, but I needed someone to understand how my ADHD connects with my depression and how I'm trying to navigate some things related to this, right?
Mm.
So thankfully I was with someone that I was really comfortable with, and she has helped me come up with systems that I use to this day as a coping mechanism, and it's a way to also like dissect the things that I go through basically, because I no longer have therapists. I no longer can afford her, but I will always cherish our time that we had together, because she really did a number of work, and she helped myself and my husband. We used to share the same therapist, which was kind of probably a no in that book, but she was great. I
Mm.
missed her, I love her, but through her I wanted to do something for myself. And I already knew I have ADHD, but some way, somehow, my brain kept saying that I was just faking it, looking for attention, it's not real. So I wanted to seek out my own closure, and I asked her if she knew any psychiatrists that can diagnose me for ADHD. And she introduced me to a doctor from a uni who, it's a uni, but it's also like a hospital, but it's also basically it's where a lot of the student doctors would eventually go to work as when they're completed a certain number of their trainings or their studies. But he was one of the doctors there, and he gave me a questionnaire to fill out. I was fidgeting a lot, not because I was nervous, but just because my nervous system was just crazy, and I didn't know any. I mean, I'm fidgeting now playing my hair clip, but like it was a very severe, and he made a note of that without telling me just yet. But also he saw the first 7 questions of the questionnaire, and he was like, "Yeah, you have ADHD. I don't have to look at the rest of the
Oh,
questions. Like
wow. Yeah.
I just know." And I don't think that wasn't actually an official diagnosis. I would tell her that right
Mm.
now, because I hadn't needed to pay for anything.
Yeah.
I am aware that like actual diagnosis will probably go through a little bit more extensive test and probably have to pay a little bit more for that. But what the questionnaire consists of is that it asks questions from my past, like how was I at home when I was younger? How am I at work right now? How was I at school? In various different situations and circumstances, it paints different pictures. And so I tried to explain all of that. I don't remember what the questions were, but I remember asking my mom, how was I when I was younger? Because I have memory loss and I don't remember a lot of things. And I need to know like what you remember about my childhood. And she was saying like, well, when you were in church, you just couldn't sit still. Like you have to touch the piano, you have to touch the guitar, you have to touch the bass, you have to touch the drums, and you have to go like talk to people. And I was like, is it like, doesn't it already explain like I'm not just a hyperactive kid, but like there's just a lot going on in my brain, and I just didn't know how to express myself. And so I put that in one of my notes, and I think that's one of the first 7 questions that he was reading. So then he prescribed me some medication. It's Ritalin, and I remember it being 20 mg. That's the most that they're allowed to prescribe. And I remember my next visit, I was visibly a lot more calmer. And that's when he told me, like, when he first met me, I was fidgeting a lot. But how are you now that you've taken your medication? And I would say that I had things a little bit more under control. I
Hmm.
remember my experience taking the meds. I felt like everything in my head was, instead of like it being 100% volume, it was like at 20%. And I was
Wow.
able to have some sort of focus in
Mm.
the work that I do, and just a lot of emotional regulation. That was one of the things that I struggled so much. I remember during the Halloween event in Destiny, this was like 2 years ago. I remember being up as early as 6 to get some stream hours in so that I can have the rest of my day off. And I was
Mm.
playing with somebody, and they were doing exactly the opposite of what I was trying to tell them to do, and I was really upset. And because it was still too early for me to take my medication, I didn't. That's why I was not on my meds. But then after that moment, I took my medication, and within half an hour, I was calm, like nothing ever happened. And that
Right.
was one of the things I realized how much I do appreciate being on medication is to get my emotional regulation under control. And it's
Yeah.
very prominent when I'm not. It's even more prominent because I have like hormonal issues as a woman. It really affects like everything emotionally. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's my long about way of how I came to accept that I have ADHD because of
Mm.
TikTok. I had a therapist who was kind enough to help me work through some stuff. And then
Mm.
for my own personal closure, I went to seek a diagnosis from a professional psychiatrist. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Mel. Yeah, I always find people's journey with anything mental health really interesting, and just, yeah, how they've sort of, I guess, often had to navigate that journey themselves.
Yeah.
That it's, I think, in the medical industry becoming better known. But like you say, I liked how you voiced that you see the ADHD as that sort of invisible disability, because that neurodivergence, it impacts life so much. And
It
when people and others can understand that, I think
does.
that, and have a bit more compassion, it also helps people who are neurodivergent to be able to relax a little bit and go, okay, well, I don't have to feel weird. I don't have to mask. I don't have to,
Yeah.
be something else that I'm not,
Mhm.
which is really
Exactly.
difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I make a point to have it be a normal conversation to have on stream. I've had goosebumps moments where I would be in the middle of a monologue about ADHD and about having invisible disability and whatnot. And then I'll have a lurker breaking their lurk just to tell me how they suddenly felt seen and how they came into stream and fully expecting a Destiny 2 gameplay, and but then like felt touched that I talk about these things and make it normal, and that's all I want it to be. People always
Mm.
talk about creating a safe space, but people don't take the time to define what their safe space is. And for me, I want it to be a safe space for neurodivergent people. And not just ADHD, but for anyone who could just come in and then blab away their life story. I've had people who has never really talked to me and then suddenly was telling me their personal life story about a significant other, and I'm just like, I don't know where this comes from, but I love it. I'm enjoying this, and I love
Yeah.
that you feel
Yeah.
safe enough to share this with me. And then I've had people relating to some of my stories as someone who has ADHD, but then don't really have a formal diagnosis. But even if they don't want to go through that journey of learning whether or not they have ADHD, I at least have explained certain situations, give a name to something, explain why your brain thinks a certain way. That way, at least they don't feel so frustrated with themselves and they don't get too hard on themselves. And they're a little bit more kind to themselves. And that's something that I'm trying to do myself, to be able to place an idea and understanding to why I do certain things, why I feel certain things, and I don't beat myself up for it. And that's
Yeah.
just all I want for other people as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I noticed that with your Twitch, and it's one of the reasons I wanted to chat to you, because I think you do that so beautifully on your channel with, people sharing with you, and it really does feel like a safe space. And I love how you're so openly talking about all the things that you experience and bringing other people in on that. So it
Mhm.
very much feels like, you call it cozy, the space you create there. And it's unique, I think, because I've jumped into other streams just because I've been curious, and I tend to, like you say, like deep dive on something. So I'll watch all these different streams and that. And I think yours definitely stands out in that way.
Thank you. It's funny how you use the word cozy because I never really saw it that way. But I guess cozy is a vibe, and if you feel like it's a cozy stream, then I feel honored. I leave that to chat to define what it is, because for me, cozy means like a little bit more less chaotic vibes, and I feel like I'm very chaotic, and I feel like I'm very loud. I'm not obnoxious. I feel like even the people I hang out with, we all just like laugh a lot, and we all
Yeah.
poke fun at each other a lot. Cozy is how you make it to be, and if people feel like my streams are cozy, if you feel like my stream is cozy, I feel honestly really honored, and I'm glad that I can provide that kind of vibe and space for people like you to feel safe, basically, to hang out with me.
I also love the laughs and the spicy book talk and the man boobs.
Yeah, speaking of, we'll have one of that later today.
And so, for those who don't know, Mel also is an avid reader, and she loves books, and she'll often share on her channel all the books she's reading, and
Yeah.
they're quite varied, aren't they, the books? So yeah, tell us a bit about that, Mel. The role of books in your life.
Well, you know what's funny? I made a TikTok about this yesterday where the TikTok audio basically goes like, "What's the book that got you into reading? What's the book that you like to recommend to people? And then what's your latest 5-star read?" The first book that got me into reading was actually a romance. If you remember, sometime in July, August last year, there was this movie called Red, White, and Royal Blue. It was based on a book, and it was basically about a love affair between a United States, the president's son and the king's grandson. Well, in the book, it was the queen's grandson, but they decided to go with Stephen Fry for the movie. So it's the king's grandson and the president's son. And then from there, I kind of read a lot of like books for a bit because I got the kick of it for a while. And then slowly branched out into romantasy, YA fantasy, regular romance. And then I guess I came across a lot of book talks and realized that a lot of book talk recommendations have been romance books that has spicy scenes. And then I slowly learned that I'm more of a plot person, character development person rather than spicy scenes. But I get bullied by chat a lot for reading a lot of books with spicy scenes. So I just kept it up and I'll just tell them about the books that have spicy scenes that I've read. So I realized since starting reading, and reading especially is actually one of the hardest things for an ADHD can do, because it's hard to start something if there's no anything that if there's nothing exciting about it, there's no novelty attached to it. It's hard to get into the momentum of continuing reading without getting distracted and wanting to have to go through TikTok or Twitter just to keep our dopamine going, just to keep our brain interested. But one thing that I've slowly learned to incorporate is having sticky tabs, and I use a pen or a highlighter to underline certain parts in the book. So I make my reading really, really intentional. I make sure that, especially when it comes to fantasy books, make sure that I can retain certain information. That way, if I ever need to go back, I don't go like, I think it said something like this in the previous pages, but then I couldn't really find it, and that would actually frustrate me. So having to do that and to really absorb information like that, I don't read an entire chapter and go, what did I just read? I don't remember a single thing. When I started reading, I had a friend with me. We no longer read together because we realized that we have very different book taste. I love fantasy books a little bit more than romance, contemporary romance book, and they prefer a little bit more spicier books, books that have no plot and a lot of like spicy scenes, just a lot of romance in general, basically. So we kind of parted ways, but that they helped me to get into the kick of reading, and within 4 months, I read like 33 books. So between like August and December, and then this year, I've already read about that much in within like 3 months, within over like 3 months. So yeah, so that's just been how I've been dealing with reading books. I realized also at some point that I love to demolish romance books on Kindle. I got myself a Kindle Unlimited subscription because of that. And then I would very much would like to have my bookshelf be filled more with fantasy books, because I feel like fantasy books are harder to retain information unless I can draw on my book, unless I can underline them, highlight them, put a sticky tab on them so I could refer back to certain moments. Whereas romance books, I can just eat it up within like 6 hours and be done with it. That's my experience with reading so far.
I love the fantasy books, I think, because they're so far removed from reality. It's like an escape. It's something that I
Yeah.
can really kind of get into a plot or get into, I guess another world.
Yeah.
The books that build that world so descriptively and the characters, I really love the series where they do that.
Yep, pretty much. I still feel like I have a book hangover with the Throne of Glass series. Like
Oh, yes.
I my last fantasy book was a duology, and I'm like, why isn't this longer? I need this to be longer. Something a bit more longer than 2 books. I'm not a lore person when it comes to games. Like 'cause Destiny's lore is
Mm.
like all over the place, and it's hard to piece them together. But when it comes to fantasy books, I just love how intricate the details can get and how crazy the world building can get. And I just think to myself, like, how did these authors come up with so many ideas and coming up with names and locations, somehow can connect them all at the end of the book? And I just love that about fantasy books.
Yeah, it's quite
So
incredible, isn't it?
it is, yeah, mind blowing.
Because I loved, and I know you haven't read these yet, the Fourth Wing and the Iron Flame books, and
No,
I
because I know that they
and
have
they
a
were
third book
because they've
coming
got the
out, and
3. I know,
so
and
I don't
because I
want
read the
to.
first one and I'm like, "Oh, no, I've gotta wait."
Yeah,
And I'm not sure what I think of them doing the movie and that. I'm like, "Oh, is it gonna be good or not?"
we'll see. And there's also
Mm,
talks of the possible work with Akatar as well. They did have the project going for a few years now, but then they scraped it. But then there's also pictures of Margot Robbie, the Barbie actress. She went and talked to
mm.
Sarah J. Maas,
Oh,
and
no.
then there are some actress and actors reading
I'm sorry, I'm
Akatar.
just trying to imagine, her in that role again.
I don't know. I don't think she's gonna
Mm,
play a character. Even she is maybe not like
okay.
one of the main characters, but I feel like
Mm.
she might be one of the people that producing
Yes, true, true. Yeah.
that series. And so there are also pictures of other celebrities reading ACOTAR. And so people are trying to put together the
Yeah.
pieces, and so it's is like Taylor Swift all over again, where people like trying to dive into like possible theories and stuff like that.
The
I'm,
conspiracies about what's
yeah,
coming.
yeah, I'm not really deep into it, but then
Mm.
but it's really interesting and cool to see. Like if that were real, then I'd like to definitely see how they would work on it. But I also don't mind if they make these series into like an animation, a
Hmm.
TV series. That would be also just as well. And
Yeah,
they would
yeah,
have a little
true.
bit more creative liberty, I feel, to go deeper with the details rather than trying to cram everything and make it look believable and stuff like that. But we'll see. We'll never know. Might be many years from
Yeah,
now before anything is concrete, but it's just
yeah.
exciting to theorize.
Yeah, it is, it is.
Yeah,
And see what's yeah, what might be coming on the horizon and where we're right or not.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So I was gonna come back to your social media management and ask you a bit about that. Probably from my personal perspective, my last podcast talked to an artist that I actually left social media at the end of last year for my own mental health because I always found, and this was talking about Instagram and Facebook, and I'd kind of dabbled in TikTok but pulled away from it because it was just another platform to do.
Hmm.
That we're told, okay, you need to put your work out there, and a lot of artists do really, really well on social media selling their work
Hmm.
because it gets them out there, it gets them known, it's a line in the water. What are your like? Do you have any tips for managing social media in a way that it doesn't suck you in? I guess, and by that I mean I've tried to use it as a business tool, but I always find that I kind of fall into that scroll hole, and then I would find myself comparing myself with other artists, and that would end up being a trigger for my anxiety and depression.
Hmm.
And so my life has been a lot happier not having that element and not having that space where I feel like I have to perform.
Hmm. Okay. Everything you say is completely valid. When I took a break from my freelance business as someone who was doing a lot of Instagram reels and TikTok videos, like I was producing a lot of them every month
Mm,
and also writing the captions for it. I was, planning the videos, recording them, editing them, putting the captions and stuff like that. It was like my whole deal. It
yeah.
does get overwhelming, and I could have easily hired help to help me with it. But I think one of the ways that I like to make this more manageable for me is to one find people that you can talk to about this. I don't think you're meant to do this alone because social media is
Mm,
very overwhelming, and
mm,
I'm no longer active on Facebook and Instagram for that reason. I'm only on Twitter and TikTok because it's weird because Instagram's trying to be like TikTok, but it doesn't feel like I want to follow people that I curate, but I don't really want to follow what the algorithm is trying to show me. That's where TikTok comes. And I find that TikTok's algorithm is less intrusive than Instagram for some reason. The way Instagram's UI is designed, I just feel like this is the only way I can think of is intrusive. It's just a little bit too much. That's how I
yeah.
feel with Facebook as well because they recently changed. But I would be looking at pages with like weird AI pictures, and I'm like, I don't remember following this page. Why is it on my timeline? Like, why is it on my homepage? I don't like any of this. It's too loud. It's too noisy. Which is funny because TikTok is full of dances and memes and trends and whatever the latest audio is, and people doing their bit and their skit to it. But it doesn't feel as intrusive as Facebook and Instagram. So
Mm,
I would start with like having someone that you can talk to about this. That way
mm,
you don't feel overwhelmed. You have someone that you can share this with. But also you have the power to curate your feed, your For You page. So
mm,
go around and give yourself some time. You can put like a clock or timer to limit yourself. But go around, look for artists, people that you admire, and just follow those people that you like, interact with them, talk to them. You don't give yourself any pressure. Just go in and think like you're gonna look for a new friend to make friends with. Work
mhm,
with that. And then when you feel comfortable again, go back into it as someone with a business mind, someone that wants to
mhm,
create content, but knows that there's no point to compare yourself. You can instead look for ideas that you can borrow and then make it your own. A lot of these trends, they become trends because people were borrowing ideas from other people and from other people and from other people, and then they make it their own. they would act along or lip sync along those audios, but then they would have different text above their head to make it their own big to describe their situation a little bit better. And a lot of the videos
Yeah.
that I make for my clients, a lot of them went viral because of this. One of the accounts that I managed was a gym account, and I remember everyone was doing this knocking trend on TikTok, and then like they peeped to the other side and the other person was like trying to listen to it. Doesn't make sense for a gym content. I mean, I could come up with something, but instead
Mhm.
I just come up with a generic, easy to follow fitness content, which is like 3 ways you can get your steps in, how you can get 10K steps easily within a day. And so I did something like that, and then I list out 3 ways. But then I follow to the beat of the music, and I have my videos edited to the beat of the music. So then it looks really captivating. And that one,
Mm.
last I checked, it was sitting at 95,000 views. I've ever surpassed that because TikTok has been promoting a lot of older videos for some reason. I don't know why. So you go find out trends that you think you would like, and then if as soon as you have that idea spark in your head, oh, I can do this with one of this art, or I can do this with like my office or whatever, write it down immediately. Don't let that idea.
Mm. Yeah, I guess it's finding that fun element in it, isn't it? For you
Very
and what
so.
vibes with you,
Yeah,
and I guess showing your personality in whatever platform you're in.
yeah.
And I always found it a little bit difficult to, because I'm a really private person, to know how much to share, because art
Mhm.
can be such a personal thing
Yeah.
that, if you're drawing on your personal experience, like how
Mhm.
much do I share? How
Mhm.
much do I share about the elements of your personal life?
Yeah, there's a few things I can come up with if you don't feel like sharing too much of yourself because it, like you say,
Mm,
a little bit personal. You could do like a speed painting video, like just have the video go up
mm,
like 5 times the speed and just watch the, because I do think art videos especially, like you just have to trust the process
yeah.
as an audience. You don't know what's gonna look like, but then you watch the journey from start to beginning, and then
You can see it build. Yeah.
can see it build. You can also talk about your thought process. Like that doesn't have to be
Mm,
super personal, but you can start with like I usually maybe do a little bit of a sketch once I have an idea in
mm,
my head, and then I'll pick my colors. I know you don't have to be super personal. Personal for me is more like how do I find my inspiration? I think that's when it gets personal because then you have to go deep dive into like what inspires you, or maybe even to a point like what your routine is as an artist. Like how do you keep up
mm,
with your inspiration? How do you make sure that you're constantly filled with ideas? What do you do when you don't have ideas? That to me, it can be both personal and impersonal because
mm,
it really depends on how much you want to share. And that's when you probably have to talk to the camera. But one of the ways that I find that can work for you is to, like I said, have that speed painting. It doesn't have
mm,
to be a very specific piece related to the video because what you can do is that you can still make this personal videos, but instead of having
mm.
just your face on it, you'll show your process of painting. And then you do a voiceover over it. And then you just kind of go through
Yes.
like simple ways of explaining to people how you work as an artist. That way it doesn't you
Mm,
don't feel so pressured to perform, like you say, since you don't like to perform, right? It stresses you
yeah.
out. So don't show your face, but you can still share by talking and have that be like a voiceover.
Yeah, I guess that's a nice way to think of it, isn't it? Yeah, that there's other ways that you can find yourself in that. So yeah,
Yeah,
thank you for sharing that, because
no,
that
no
gives
worries.
me some ideas, and I'm not going back to social media just yet, but as the year goes on and I get more pieces that I paint, I will. There's elements of that Instagram community and that I really enjoyed, and I know that people like having that inspiration, like they like seeing what you're doing and
Yeah,
they escape through art. And I think that's
yeah.
sometimes why they buy it and put it on their wall, because it reminds them of something.
Can I share one more tip for you before you move on to
Yeah,
another
yeah,
question?
absolutely.
Even though you're not going back to social media anytime soon, just start recording now. Have
Okay, yeah.
whenever you start painting or whenever you do something, just record it. You don't have to have it be like a great angle or whatever. Just have something that you can have so that when you do feel ready, you don't start to feel overwhelmed. You don't start to panic because now you already have a handful of videos that you can use anytime and you just need to put words or voices or music on top of it. Just start recording.
Yeah.
Don't overthink it.
I think that's probably actually a key, what you just said there, because I think that it was very much I was always going on the day. It was like, oh, I don't have anything, I haven't posted anything for a week, and then that pressure
Yeah.
just kind of makes you shut down.
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Just
Yeah.
start recording anytime you're painting. Just put it on a time lapse.
Mm,
You can show your palette and be like, these are the colors I'm using, and then like you can show like this is the painting that I done with it.
mm.
Just something simple like that. It doesn't have to be long. It can be a few seconds, just snippets of what you're doing. That way, when you feel comfortable and you want to put something out there, you have all these videos you can put together and you can edit and you can talk over it. You can put text over them and you'll have something. You don't have to feel overwhelmed thinking
Yeah.
about what am I going to record today now that I feel ready to go on social media because you already have something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you,
You're
Mel. Yeah,
welcome.
no, that's really good. I was going to ask you if you don't mind talking about this, because only because it's something as like our family homeschools, something that comes up very often in that is limiting children's gaming time and limiting, in some cases, not allowing children access to computers at all.
Mhm.
I would love you to talk a little bit about, I guess, that there can be a toxic side or an addictive side, maybe I could more call it, to gaming and things like that,
Mhm.
and how you find that. Like, how can I word that? Does that make sense?
Like, do you want me to give my opinion about this?
Yeah, yeah. Probably your personal experience, I guess, is what I'm looking
Okay.
at there or that I'm interested in, because I don't have that issue because we're a very tech savvy family because my husband's a computer software engineer and, we've all got computers and we game and we don't have restrictions on that, but we do life kind of differently to other people. So there's some parents who have this massive fear around games and how could you allow your children to, even their impressionable developing brains
Mhm.
how could you let them play an addictive game? It's something that I've been confronted with a lot. So I've had to do my own research, I guess, to feel comfortable. Have you found that with gaming, or have you found it addictive? Have you found it? What's your thoughts on that?
Okay, I have a few thoughts.
Mm,
I will start by saying like I am not a parent. I don't have kids. But I spent a
yeah.
great deal of my life thinking about how I might parent my future kids. I think that partially stems from trauma because like I don't want my kids to ever go through what I went through, especially when there's no
Mm.
understanding of ADHD in my household, but like everybody's neurodivergent in my household. Like once you see it, you just see it everywhere. But on that note, I did grow up with brothers who are gamers, and they were
Mm.
very much gamers before I ever felt comfortable calling myself one. It was kind of eye opening to see how my parents react because I think they had similar reactions to what you have heard so far among your
Yep.
peers. A thought that came to mind when you said fear. Fear is there because you don't understand.
Yep.
And I wouldn't say that learning something will eliminate that fear a little bit, but it will help you to come to an understanding. Some of the things that I wish my parents would do differently to understand like what makes them be sucked into this game, like what gives them that feel like they needed to escape reality, they needed to just stay here, or what part of the game gives them the hyperfixation, and how can I make sure that it doesn't get to a point where like your personal lives is affected, because that's what addiction is, right?
Mm.
It's when other
Yeah.
aspects of your lives are affected. So I would say if it gets to that point, then it's probably a little bit too late and probably a little bit hard to get them to come off it slowly. I would say that if I were ever to introduce gaming to my kids, I would try to be an example first by only gaming like a certain time and then just play for a certain number of hours and not too much. And then just introduce a little bit the elements of the game, teach them what the game is all about, what the end goal is, what the objectives are. Just actually just educate them about the game and not just give them the game and have them figure them out and then get them to be sucked into it. I want it to be an experience where maybe but the both of us could experience together. I've
Mm.
seen many, gamer dads have their babies with them when they play. And I mean, they're babies, they won't know and remember, but I have seen
Yeah.
fathers with slightly older kids that and they would play together. And I would rather have it be like more of a bonding moment until they have decided and made a decision that this is going to be one of those hobbies that they want to keep up. And then maybe we'll have a little bit of a talk, maybe set some kind of ground rules like you can play this game, but maybe use this like more like a reward or your downtime. Don't make it a thing where it consumes your life, where it takes over your life entirely. Because it will be very hard to let go and to think of anything else if you let it become too late. Ever since I learned about different parenting skills since I was young, I have accepted one thing, and that thing is to always communicate and to have as many conversations as you can about the
Mm.
things that our kids may be going through. And because everything is very impressionable to them. But you need to be that filter for them. You need to help them discern what's good and what's bad, and then the consequences that come from both, and help them to make a responsible decision, but still give them space and let them grow and be, who the person they want to be. Because
Mm.
ultimately, your job as a parent is to help them shape into an adult where they can be not only
Mm.
self-sufficient, but they are also kind to everyone else around them, and they grow up to be a wholesome human being altogether, right? So my opinion on whether or not like games can be addicting, whether or not it'll pose a negative effect, it's how you as a parent would make it to be. I ultimately,
Yeah.
those children are under your roof, they're your responsibility. If you are scared that things can be addictive, you have to find a way to put
Mm.
like a dampener on it. Don't take the game entirely away, because that's borderline abusive in my opinion.
Yeah. And it nearly makes it, I think, more attractive in some ways.
Yeah.
If I can only, because okay, one example, my mum wouldn't let me have Dolly magazine when I was a teen.
Okay.
And so that was like yeah, just a teen magazine. It was teen all the teen girls read, and I wasn't allowed to have it. I was from a strict Christian household and we didn't read Dolly. And so I snuck it. I got it from my friends and I'd hide it under my bed and I'd read it
Yeah.
because I wanted to know what was in it. And that's what I try to do with my kids too. I know that, like we'll talk about Parker, he's got that element where he's really curious.
Mhm.
And if I just said no, he would probably go do it anyway.
Yeah.
So
I can see
it's like we may as well have, which you probably can see that. So I'm better to have that conversation with him.
it.
And his sister is even more stubborn and more determined. So
Yeah, I'm an older child, and so I would consider myself to be the rebellious kid among my siblings. And like you said, like the more you have a strict no in your household, the more people are just gonna sneak out, sneak in, and
mm,
hide
mm,
things from their parents. And that's not something that you want to do. You want to make sure that
yeah.
you're not being a helicopter parent. You're not someone that always hovers among over your children, but
Mm,
you want to have that open relationship where even you as a parent can have a safe conversation about literally anything under the sun. You're not supposed to be their friend, but if you can have that friend element when you parent
mm,
and have them feel like they can come to you just as well as they go to their friends about things, then I would say like, yeah, you're doing a good job as a mom or dad. That's
mm,
my personal
mm,
opinion about it. For gaming, I would like for it to be a bonding moment just because I'm also a gamer. But if I'm not a gamer, then
mm,
I would like to learn about it. I would like to know why my children are interested in a particular entertainment form,
yeah.
and what makes them happy about it and stuff like that. I want to just understand a little bit more about the interests. I mean, I feel like this
Yeah.
applies to any other interest, not just
Yeah.
gaming, but why does gaming have a different treatment than any other interest? That's
Yeah, I think that it can be seen as very negative because like having net nanny or the thought we have to restrict our children online because there might be a pedophile lurking or
that's
something like
fair.
that. Whereas I think that even just having those conversations though and making them aware of who they're talking to
Hmm.
and checking that community out yourself, but also that why is there the attraction to gaming for kids? And I only bring this up because I've read of Professor Peter Gray and he has a very different take on gaming and that for kids
Hmm.
because he's sort of an advocate of unschooling,
Hmm.
and I love his work,
Hmm.
and he's probably who I've sort of been able to understand it better. And he's kind of like gaming, and that is like the last frontier where kids aren't controlled.
Hmm.
They're like kids used to be able to go out in the street and play and not have a parent or somebody constantly there who's monitoring and metering out their playtime.
Hmm.
And even playtime at school now is very much you get half an hour and you can only do these things and you can only play with these people. It's so restricted. Whereas gaming provides this world that often parents don't really, I guess, know
Hmm.
about, and so kids can finally be free
Hmm. Yeah.
and have freedom that they wouldn't usually. So I find that element really interesting.
I think also because for the first time in a while, children have a little bit of autonomy over their decisions. Not just a freedom, but
Hmm.
when it comes to gaming, you get to control how you want the game to be. You get to choose what you want to do. You get to choose what you want to create or build, or what activity do you want to do. I'm just thinking from like games that kids would play, like Roblox or Minecraft, or even something as cozy as Stardew Valley. They have now choices to make, and especially if kids are not presented with a lot of choices in their day to day life, it would feel some sort of liberation. And I think that's something
Yeah.
that at least for me, I felt like I didn't have a lot of choices growing up because it was a really strict household, and I was just given an ultimatum:
Yeah.
it's either this or you're not getting anything else. So that I also like to think like gaming allows kids to just in a way be themselves for a little bit and have
Mm.
that liberty and the autonomy to do things for themselves.
I completely agree. And I feel that by stopping kids with computers altogether, I don't know, it's just, it's a tool that we use, isn't
Yep.
it? They see us using it. So it's natural that, they're going to model that and want to understand it and use it because they know it's, going to be an important part of their future. I think that's just a natural kind of progression to say, hey, mum's on a phone or dad uses a computer, I'm going to do that too.
Yep. Pretty much.
And
Yeah.
then finding themselves in that world.
Yeah.
So, Mel, in wrapping up, do you have any, I guess, pursuits that you want to pursue in your future or things that you want to accomplish or do in the coming years?
Well, as someone who has no concept of what a future would look like, not really. I used to have plans like goals or dreams, right? Like I wanted to be like a really good studio producer and stuff like that. But right now, I'm trying to take things one at a time and to just enjoy the current moment.
Yeah, I know you mentioned that before, like living in the moment.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah, pretty much. I'd love to have
yeah.
goals again, but honestly, I'm tired just thinking about it. Like I had a thought last night. Like I feel like I'm always at capacity, even though I am not. I have
Hmm.
no actual full time job. I do have some work in social media, but like it's being managed by my colleagues, and they handle the clients, and I may have a bit more work to do in the future, but right now I just want to give a bit more time for myself. I mentioned this earlier that I said I was going to come back to, and I think this is a good time to come back to, but like I have always been grieving the fact that I cannot remember a lot of my special moments growing up because I was never really truly, I don't think I was truly living the moment. I was enjoying my time. Maybe I was living, but it wasn't really mindful. It wasn't really intentional. I was just going because I felt like doing it because that's where my dopamine is leading me to because it makes me happy and I'm gonna go do that. And it's what one of the things I love about our current era with phones and devices is that we can always take pictures and take videos and stuff like that. I still take pictures of the food I eat, even though I don't post them on social media anymore. It's just a habit at this point, but I do like to go back and be like, "Oh yeah, I had this really good food the other day," and it's nice to remember what it looks like, you know? And I want to be able to have I want to reach a point where I don't regret not living in the moment anymore because that's the thing that comes with ADHD is that you tend to forget things, right? Yeah, memory loss is common also in depression because when you go through trauma, like your brain kind of protects you a little bit and don't really remember the pain that you felt. But it also affects other areas in your life where you may forget other moments in your life. So I want to try and remember as much as I can the feelings that I feel. So even if I can't remember the moments, I want to remember the feelings I feel. So, for example, like when I'm streaming, I want to remember the good vibes. I want to remember even the pain, the things that make me cry randomly on stream, the things that make me feel happy when I talk to chat, the things that makes me laugh when I try to explain to chat like why I'm reading this current spicy book, for example. Like just those little moments. I may not remember the exact moment, but I will remember the feelings, and I want to do that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm working on right now because I don't want to look back and be like, I don't remember that time. It's such a wild time,
Mm,
you know? So, yeah, I don't really have any plans in the future. I do want to be able to still do this for as long as I can, as long as it allows me to. I don't even have plans to grow my stream outside of Twitch. It's always been organic. All of my growth on Twitch, all my followers have always been within Twitch. I don't post on I've tried to post on social media, but I don't think like it was consistent enough to gain any sort of traction. Mostly because like I I feel weird putting myself out there as a person, but I'm somehow okay being me on stream.
mm.
So I'd like to keep it within myself. Maybe someday, if somehow I don't feel like I'm at capacity in any way or another, maybe I'll turn some content into YouTube. I don't want to lose touch on my editing skills. I don't want to lose touch on
Mm.
my content creation skills, and I'd like to keep that going as much as I can, or as long as I can, and yeah, keep that spark going. That's probably as
Yeah.
much as I'll
Yeah.
do, is to put myself out there a little bit more, not for the sake of growth, but mostly to keep up with my skills. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's beautiful, Mel. Thank you for sharing. And thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been awesome to chat.
Thank you for having me. I know I talk a lot and I keep going like off tangent before coming back to the main
So,
question.
it's been great.
I
It's been great.
thank you for being patient, and I appreciate your questions. That does make me like stop and think a little bit. I especially did not expect like the question about parenting and gaming, and yeah, mostly because I'm not a parent, but I'd love
Mm,
I didn't mind diving into that and giving it a little bit of thought about that. Yeah. Thank you for
mm,
having me.
mm. Thank you for joining us on the Trailblazers Palette podcast. We appreciate your support. Don't forget to subscribe and share if you enjoyed the episode. Stay tuned for more inspiring conversations with incredible guests. Keep blazing your trail, and until next time, stay inspired. This is Sanchia, your host, signing off. See you soon, Trailblazers.